Coming up, a one-on-one chat with Raynuha Sinnathamby, Managing Director of Springfield City Group, formerly Springfield Land Corporation. Daughter of the legendary Maha Sinnathamby, Raynuha has been part of the executive team since 1998. It's Sunday, December 13, 2020, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Raynuha Sinnathamby was born in Malaysia and is one of 4 children to Maha and Yoga Sinnathamby. The family made the move from Perth to Brisbane in the 1980s. Since arriving in Queensland, it's been some journey with business partner Bob Sharpless, especially the decision in 1992 to buy about 3,000 hectares of land that nobody wanted and which later became known as Greater Springfield. Raynuha Sinnathamby has kindly agreed to share her story. Thanks for talking with Ipswich Today, Raynuha.
A pleasure, Alan. Thanks for having me.
What are your first memories of your family as a little girl, especially of your mum and dad?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Probably a hard one, but it would probably be time that we were growing up in Perth in a very sort of basic house that eventually actually became an office building that my father constructed.
You moved to Perth from Kuala Lumpur when still a baby. Did you hear many stories from your parents about their lives before you were born?
Oh, yeah, definitely, Alan. They had obviously married and settled down in a new home in Kuala Lumpur, but it was a bit with unease at the time in the city, and there was a lot of unrest, and they decided it wasn't a place to raise a family, and eventually decided to come to Australia. And my dad had studied in Sydney, so he was obviously familiar with Australia, and his brother had moved to Perth. So I think he was drawn to Perth because of that family connection.
Undoubtedly. Now, the school years would have been a big influence on shaping your life. Where did you attend primary school and secondary school, and did you enjoy your school days?
Yeah, most of my schooling was actually in Perth. And I did love my school days. I think growing up in such a vibrant atmosphere, surrounded by people that, you know, were just wanting to have a bit of a good time, but also my parents, I guess, being very aspirational and wanting to offer the best for their kids. So I was very fortunate. I went to a wonderful school. And grew up with people that were very like-minded to that aspirational family values. Mm-hmm. And, I really enjoyed my childhood and my school days, and particularly the time that I was in Perth.
It sounds like your dad, Maha, was as driven by his convictions then as he is now. And one of my favourites being is education is the currency of the future. Did you feel as though you were under any pressure while you're at school?
No, look, there was no doubt my parents wanted us to, be the best people that we could be. And they really, I could say they gave us every opportunity to succeed in whatever we wanted, whether it was sporting endeavours or educational or academic activities. They really encouraged us to do our best. I don't think I felt pressure other than probably pressure from myself to just be the best that I could be. And, I think that is your own challenge, the challenge that you set for yourself, but also very, very much supported by both my parents.
By the time you got to year 12, did you have a career in mind?
I probably had a number of careers in mind, to be honest, Alan, and one of them was architecture. That's where I actually, for most of my school days, thought I would land up. But I was probably, shown another sort of line of thinking and probably led a lot by my father on that, and ended up doing law by the time I got to uni.
So you set out to make your own way in the world, separate from the family business.
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned law, so you was that difficult for you, or you adapted to it really well?
Yeah, I actually loved the law, and I think it was a great place for me to be. I obviously, because of my family background, ended up in property law, which is where I practiced for a number of years. And that felt very comfortable to me, and I really actually enjoyed the law. I still enjoy the law and things to do with the legal side of our business. But ultimately, my father sort of said, "Oh, come and help me out," and yeah, so along I came to Greater Springfield.
Did those discussions take place over several months, or it was basically an overnight decision?
No, I probably think it was probably a discussion over a couple of years, and my father probably thought I'd immediately respond and say, "Yeah, I'll come across," but it probably took me some time to think about it, and then I eventually made the decision to try it out.
So I think that was about 22 years ago. How time flies.
That's good, Alan. Yeah, it's really been a whirlwind and roller coaster since then.
Well, in that time, how would you describe the changes you've seen in Greater Springfield and Ipswich more broadly?
Well, I think the entire region has changed remarkably, and many people, not only in the city of Ipswich but beyond, would have seen those changes. And, primarily it's been changed because of the people that have moved to the corridor, and I think that's what's really given the next boost to the city. So, one, people can talk about the infrastructure, and of course infrastructure makes a huge amount of difference to a region, and that certainly made a difference to the entire corridor. But I think you've just seen the nature of the corridor change by the nature of people moving into the corridor.
Well, it only seems like the other day. I remember attending the opening of the Centenary Highway extension before the lake was built at Springfield Lakes, and we were literally sitting in the bush. I think other memorable moments would be the beginning of USQ construction before Sinnathamby Boulevard was there. Then, of course, there's Brookwater and Augusta Parkway, the town centre, the Mater Hospital. What are the big milestones that stick in your mind?
Yeah, there's definitely been those game-changing moments, and you're right, Alan, that one of them was the construction or the opening of the Centenary Highway into Springfield. I think the other game changer was the rail coming into Greater Springfield. That's really made a difference as to how people perceive the region and the connectivity for the people that live in Greater Springfield and beyond. And I think the other place that's really changed the way the city celebrates is Rebel Domain. Social infrastructure is a huge part of any community, and I feel that Rebel Domain really changed how people gather and celebrate, especially really important celebrations or commemorations such as Anzac Day, and of course annual carols, which is where we really see different parts of the community come out, gather, and really be in touch with each other. And I think that Rebel Domain has added a very special element to the entire region.
It certainly has, Rayna. It's almost become the very heart of the Greater Springfield area. It's such a contrast to those people who were able to see it before construction began.
Yeah, well, probably the earliest memory I have of this particular part of Greater Springfield, it was the site of the Scout Jamboree that was held back in the late 90s, and I think not many people would remember that, but that was part of the early use of the land in its very raw state, but what it's become is really something that's quite unique to the whole region.
As Managing Director of Springfield City Group, you're no doubt called on to make some tough decisions, comes with the territory, and take part in major negotiations. Is the gender balance improving in the corporate world, and who are the toughest negotiators, men or women?
Look, I think in the property industry, which is primarily the area where we play, we definitely have seen a change in the industry over the time that I've been involved. Definitely, I remember going to events in the early 90s and being one of the very few women attending property events, and what I see now is far more balance in some of those events, and some corporates that are making a particular effort to make sure gender balance is in, every panel that you are part of or hear about. And I think that's encouraging, but obviously there's still a lot more work to be done in that space. You need to start somewhere, and having some direction, some targets, some great mentors, the Male Champions of Change, which is a very big part of the property industry, has helped some of that take place.
You've also been on some industry bodies of note. How did you enjoy your time on those?
Oh, definitely. Look, it's been a game changer for me personally, particularly with the Property Council of Australia, where I've spent a lot of my own time. And I would encourage people to get involved with their industry bodies because as much as you will get out of it, you're also giving back to your industry, your own knowledge. I find that it helps me personally in so many ways that it's a very rewarding experience.
Well, with education being one of the pillars of Greater Springfield, what advice can you give young women who are now looking at their education and career after Year 12?
Any avenue to get education is something that should be explored. Obviously, people take their own time and their own pathways to start their careers. But one thing I would say is start. And that is sometimes the hardest step in the journey. And sometimes you'll continually question yourself, but there's nothing like giving something a go. And by giving it a go, you'll explore your talents, your interests, and you'll find your path to your career. So the only way you can begin the journey is to actually begin. And sometimes that's the hardest step, but it will get you started, and that's where you need to begin.
That's so true. Taking that first step out the door, often the hardest. Let's talk about the future. Where's the project timeline at now, and what's next for Springfield City Group?
It's a great question, Alan, and I think that's one of the most asked questions that I get. We believe that we're about 25% into the project. There's a lot more to come. Not all of that's residential. There's so many other elements of Greater Springfield that we wish to deliver. I think you'll see a changing nature of the residential in Greater Springfield. We're seeing the emergence of a single-person household right across the country, and that's really encouraged us to look at different housing products, including apartments. So I think you'll see apartments emerging as part of the mix that's offered in Greater Springfield, particularly areas that are close to the train station. Mm-hmm. That sort of medium to high density makes sense around those locations, transit-orientated developments and the like. I also think you'll see a lot more leisure activities be part of the offering in Greater Springfield, and we're exploring different things that might form part of the leisure offering. And, of course, we're really looking forward to seeing the Brisbane Lions women's team start to play games in Greater Springfield once their stadium is completed, hopefully in the next 18 months.
That's not too far away. Yes, that'll be another significant visual game changer for Greater Springfield. What does Raynuha Sinnathamby do for fun outside of work?
Yeah, look, I think, everything you should do should be about having a bit of fun, so including your work. It shouldn't be a drudge or treacherous thing to do. It should be enjoyable, but obviously outside work hours, I just like to spend time with my family and certainly get out in the outdoors and do some exercise and physical activity rather than sitting at my desk, which is what I do mostly at work, and enjoying the beautiful place that's Queensland. And we're one of the healthiest places in the world to be at the moment. So it really is a great part of the world to live in.
We are very lucky. It seems a bit odd I'm going to ask you a question about travel in these COVID times, but when we are able to travel again, anything on your bucket list that you'd like to go and see?
one of my first places I will be heading is to see one of my best friends who lives in Singapore, and she's lived there for a number of years. And we actually grew up together in Perth, but we often catch up in Singapore, and I'd just like to see her again and be able to know that, you know, we can jump on a plane anytime and catch up, because it's one thing, it's the place, but the other thing is just having, you know, very unique friendships that have lasted through time and that you can see each other face to face once again.
Raynuha Sinnathamby from Springfield City Group, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with Ipswich Today.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button at the bottom of the page. You can subscribe for free and share this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio, or play Ipswich Today from your smart speaker. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thanks for listening.